Welcome and thank you for standing by. Currently, all participants are in a listen-only mode. Today's webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted publicly. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now I'd like to turn the call over to your host for today, Stacy Cochran McNeil.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on moving markets. What are economic indicators and their role in housing and construction? My name is Stacy Cochran McNeil, and I'm a data dissemination specialist here at the U.S. Census Bureau. I want to thank you for joining us today for the Exploring Diversity of Census Bureau Data webinar series. This new series created by the Census Academy team here at the Census Bureau is meant to assist the novice to intermediate data user. These webinars are a great opportunity for you to learn from our experts about how to access the Census Bureau data, tools, and resources. If you wish to follow along, take a moment now to open an additional browser. You can register for any of our webinars by visiting census.gov/academy. Before I introduce today's speakers, let's go over a few important housekeeping rules. As I mentioned earlier, this webinar is being recorded. For your convenience, it will be uploaded to our Census Academy site with all supplemental materials relating to the webinar within 30 business days. We welcome written questions during the webinar. Please submit your written questions using the QA panel, which is at the bottom center or right side of your WebEx screen. Please take a moment to locate that now. Once you've found the QA panel, make sure you choose all panelists from the drop-down menu. This will ensure that we see your question. Also, we ask that you do not include any personal or business identifiable information with your questions. We suggest keeping the chat panel open as we will provide key links and other resources throughout the webinar. Keep in mind you won't be able to respond to the chat. That is for us to send out links and other resources related to the presentation. My colleagues Bill Abritis and Carol Miller will be monitoring the QA panel. As time allows, we will answer your question directly through the QA panel, or we will share your question with the presenters to respond to during the webinar. If we do not get to all questions with a response during the webinar, we will post the questions and responses with the webinar materials on the census.gov/academy site within 30 business days. As you know, we are in a virtual environment, and sometimes technical difficulties might occur. If you are having issues, try a different browser such as Chrome, or consider logging out and coming back into the session. If you are having audio issues, try selecting the computer audio or calling into the webinar via phone. Now I would like to introduce our speakers, Emma Reburn and Nicole McKenzie. Thanks again for being here today. Nicole, you may begin.
Thank you, Stacy. First, I just want to mention a little bit about our data dissemination and training branch. We do have, Stacy's a data dissemination specialist, as am I, and there are almost 30 of us located throughout the United States. We bring training to you. So if you or your organization has a training, we're more than happy to provide training virtually. We do in-person training as well. So just reach out to us. You can see the contact information on the screen here. And I do want to also bring your attention to our Census Academy, which is what this webinar is hosted by. We also have courses on our site, and we have data gems, which if you ever have 5 minutes and you want to increase your knowledge on the Census Bureau, it's a great way to spend a little bit of time and gain a lot of knowledge. What I would like to do is just let you know a little bit about myself. First is I started as a partnership specialist in the decennial census for the 2020 census. I cover the territory of New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island, and I provide training on our tools and our data products to customers in those states. Before I started working at the Census Bureau, I was a co-founder of a grant acquisition and management company where I helped a lot of different types of entities write research and manage grants. And I always say that if I had known about all of the Census Bureau data that I know about now, I would have had a higher success in grant wins because we have some great data. So Emma, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure, thank you. Hi, my name is Emma Reburn, and I'm the branch chief for the Wholesale Indicator Branch, which is a part of the Economic Indicator Division at Census. I went to Salisbury University, where I majored in mathematics and minored in statistics, and then I landed myself at Census back in 2015. So I started out as a survey analyst, also within the Wholesale Indicator Branch. So I've been in the same area for goodness, almost 10 years. So time flies when you're having fun, really it does. And my team works on 2 principal economic indicators and 1 advanced indicator report. So we're constantly working on data and its dissemination to get the data to you all every single month. And the main report that we work on is based on the monthly wholesale trade survey, which provides users with monthly sales, inventories, and inventories to sales ratios for wholesale firms located in the US.
Thank you, Emma. So for our outline for today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Census Bureau, real brief, and then Emma's going to come in and talk about the economic indicators. I'll come back in and go over the building permit survey, and this is a scenario-based webinar. So we are going to help a fictitious character named Davy decide and make decisions based on our economic indicators and building permit survey, where and when and how to start a single family housing development. We will also do live demos. So we're going to bring you right into the tools on our site and show you how we use those tools. First, a little bit about the Census Bureau. We are part of the Department of Commerce, and we are actually the federal government's largest statistical agency. Our mission is to serve as the leading source of quality data about America's people and its economy. Many times I get asked what we do in those years in between a decennial. As you know, in a decennial census, we're counting every household across the United States in the years ending in 0. So we're very visible, but we are out there all the time actually conducting more than 130 censuses and surveys. So we do much more than a decennial census. We also have over 50 online data retrieval tools and applications that help users like you access this data that we are collecting. It helps you for planning, community analysis. It also helps for allocation of funding. You can see on the slide here, over $2.8 trillion in federal funding was distributed in part or in whole on Census Bureau data. So if you get our surveys, I know sometimes it's not the greatest thing when you get them, but please do fill them out because it does provide that great data that we can give back to you that can be so useful in what you do. Turn it back over to you, Emma.
All right, thank you. All right, so first I'll do a little bit of an intro into the division. So as I mentioned before, I work in just one branch of the Economic Indicators Division. There are many more branches that make up the division and produces all the indicator data on our pages. So our mission is to keep the world informed by providing the first official measures of the US economy. And to do that, we are your subject matter experts on all the indicator programs. And in addition to that, we compile and disseminate data to you all as quickly as possible, while also conducting data analysis and analytical research on the data prior to the dissemination. So I could probably talk for hours on every little thing that we do in the division, but hopefully you get the point. We're all about giving you the data that you need for the US economy. And on the right here, we have our division email. If you would like to learn more about us or have questions, please feel free to email us. Or if you have specific questions about a specific indicator, we have separate emails and phone numbers for those as well. So I would suggest using those, probably a more direct line to the indicator that you had questions for. All right. So what are the economic indicators? Economic indicators provide investors, businesses, and policymakers with insight into key industries that make up the economy. So you can kind of think of them as important snapshots of the US economy, which, as you can imagine, can be very insightful, especially during times like the recession, or what we're all very familiar with at this point in time, COVID. So just some examples of what indicators can do. So they offer key measures of economic performance. They gauge the current condition of the economy and affect the movement of commodity and financial markets. And then those are really like the big 3 points. And then in addition to that, they're also released on a monthly, quarterly, or weekly basis, depending on the indicator you're looking at. And the majority of the frontline data is only provided at the national level. That does not mean we don't have more detailed data, because we do. It's just not something every indicator has. Now, there are 13 principal economic indicators, and what that means is that they are approved by the Office of Management and Budget, or OMB. So if it's a principal economic indicator, the data is approved by OMB. They have release dates that are scheduled 1 year in advance and are made available to the president prior to their release. So of the 13, 5 of them are monthly, 4 are quarterly, and 4 are considered highly sensitive. So those highly sensitive indicators are considered to be the first glimpse of the sector's economy. They are released at 8:30 in the morning versus other indicators being released at 10 a.m. And they also require a pre-release briefing to the undersecretary prior to their release. So when we take a look at the indicators later on, you will notice that we have a lot more than 13, which I'll talk about on the next slide. Okay, so this is a list of all of the indicator data items that we showcase on the indicator webpage. They're broken out by 6 different categories: business profits and formations, consumer spending, inventories, construction and housing, manufacturing, and international trade. So these items highlighted in gray are not officially principal economic indicators, but that just means they haven't gone through the official approval process. They're still extremely important indicators for the economy. So, right, those are the, for example, like the advanced international trade, business applications, all those gray boxes. And then if anybody's out there actually counting the boxes on the screen, there's actually 14 blue boxes instead of the 13 that I mentioned before. And the reason for that is that the construction and housing category, so both the rental vacancy rate and the homeownership rate in that category are technically considered one indicator. And this is just a really good example of how one indicator can actually provide more data than you might think. And then also indicators with the word advance in front are just early snapshots of the data that are released prior to the main release. So as you can see, we have like advanced new orders in the manufacturing category. We have advanced international trade in the international trade category, advanced retail inventories, and so on. So later on in the presentation, like Nicole was saying, we'll be going through a specific scenario as an example of how to use the indicator data. And within that example, we'll be focusing on the construction and housing category. So just keep that in mind as we move forward. So this is just a list of some of our primary stakeholders that use our economic indicator data. Some of our indicators are actually used to help calculate gross domestic product, or GDP, that the Bureau of Economic Analysis puts out. And again, our goal is to provide timely data related to the economy for any public use, which means all data users are our stakeholders, aka you guys, so everyone. All right, so now I'm going to go through some snapshots of the indicator webpage, which we will go over by section. Our indicator page will actually be changing very soon. So the images that you see here will be what the page is going to look like, not what's currently there now. And that just means everyone on this webinar is getting the first sneak peek into what our new page layout will look like. So you guys are the lucky ones right now. So I've highlighted 2 main ways to organize the data on the page. On the right is an image of what the page would look like in its entirety. And then on the top left, we have the category or groupings. So these are groupings of indicators, which I showed earlier. and they're color coded. So as you can see, construction and housing is in that top row on the far right in that yellowish looking box. Then the second call out that I have on below that other one is how you can view the indicator data. So you can view them in graph format, which is shown as the default, or you can view it in a table format, which I'll show you guys later on. All right, so just zooming in on the page at the top, we have what we call the Index of Economic Activity, or IDEA. This is a great way to graph the indicators together, or you can look at the index value, which is an aggregation of 15 of the indicator data we have that provides a single time series constructed as a weighted combination. And I know that was a lot for any novice users out there, as a lot of verbiage, but I won't go into detail about the IDEA in this webinar, but I have put a link that can help explain what the IDEA is and how to interpret it, which is also provided on the main page. So as you can see, they have 3 tabs at the top, and that About tab can tell you everything you need to know. Okay, so this is what the visualization will look like for each indicator. The data item is at the top, so we're looking at wholesale inventories. And if you hover over that, it will link you to the wholesale page. So if you want to dive a little bit deeper into the indicator, you can just click on that and it'll take you to everything you need to know. Then we have the release date right below that on the left. And this is a great way to determine whether you're looking at a monthly or quarterly or weekly indicator by the frequency in which it releases. So for example, in this one, the release date is a month apart, so this is a monthly indicator. And then we also have the current and the difference. So again, these are just either a level or a percent about the most recent data for the specific indicator. And it gives you kind of, again, a quick snapshot of what the indicator is showing. Then we have the main graph right here. So at the top of the graph, you'll know if the data is seasonally adjusted or not seasonally adjusted, or something else. We have many options. And then, of course, we have it in either billions of dollars or units, whatever those may be. And then at the very bottom, we have the action buttons. So the pin button is that top left one, allows users to pin their favorite indicators so that they can be sorted at the top. That way, if you want to keep track of one of your indicators and you don't have to scroll through all of them and look for it each time, you can pin it and save it for later. The Excel and press release buttons are just ways to view the data, the most current data in an Excel or PDF version. Then we have the time series button, which brings you to another page where you can manipulate the historic and current data in one place and create graphs and bar charts, which I believe Nicole will show you later on. The RSS button can be used for people to easily watch for updates on our indicator pages and their releases. And then finally, we have the info button, which will provide information on the data item and link back to the methodology behind it. So this is what the table view will look like instead of the graph view. It has all the same information as the graph view with the addition of the prior period. So you can still view the graph in that chart column as well, but we also have this prior period, which gives you a little bit more information if you're looking to compare the most current release with the previous one. So again, all similar stuff. You've got the indicator name on the left, same action buttons on the right, and everything in between. All right, so I've covered the main web page to see all things indicator related. You should be able to get to all the data from there, but sometimes our coolest things are more hidden and buried within our pages. So I'm just going to go over a few pretty cool data products that you might not know about. Okay, first up, we have an example of the monthly state retail sales map. This shows retail data by state, so like clothing, gas stations, and furniture, based on year-to-year percent changes. So the higher the percent change, the darker the color. So just from this image, you can see that the dark colored state is Iowa. And that just means that they had a pretty large year-over-year change in the total retail category. So again, if you go to this link, you can play around with the map as well as go to the actual web page. Then this next one is the real dollar estimates of monthly sales of merchant wholesalers, which shows month-to-month percent changes on wholesale data that are adjusted for commodity prices. So we don't have a fancy visualization, but adjusting for prices is something that indicators as a whole are looking into, and we were really excited about. COVID really helped push us to get this data since prices were so impactful during that time, and honestly, they still are. So this is a really nice way to see an even more accurate representation of the data. And then next we have business trends and outlook visualizations, which measures business performance by sector, state, and metropolitan statistical area. So on the left, you have a bar chart of an industry's performance for a given 2-week period. So if you hover over the industry, you can also see a graph of that industry going back a full year. And then again, similar information on the right, but you have that geographical view. And then finally, we have the business applications map, which shows month-to-month or year-to-year percent changes on various types of business applications by state and by region. So this is similar to the retail sales map in the way that the colors represent how strong or weak the year-to-year or month-to-month percent change is. But mainly, this map shows you the states, and then the data on the right shows you the US total for that specific month. All right, and then now I'm going to go through a live demo of the indicator web pages. Okay, so the best way to get to the indicator data, you would think might be clicking on surveys and programs, which is where you get a lot of the data from census.gov. But when you go to census.gov, the easiest way to get to it, which is meaning like less clicks, the way you have to do less clicks to get to it, is actually scrolling down, and right next to the population clock is the US economic indicators. So we have a little dashboard here of the 4 most recent releases that the indicators have done. And again, these are quick snapshots. So if you ever want to dive deeper into the data, which I'll show you, you click on this and go to those web pages. So these are just the 4. And again, so the most recent one is business formation statistics. This was released released on June 12th for the May 2024 report, and it shows that applications were down 1.5%. So if you click on the View All US Economic Indicators, that'll take you to the main web page. So this should look familiar. We have the idea at the top right here. And I'm just going to quickly go through this a little bit because it is cool. When you are looking at the idea, it is an index value, but you have the option to view additional data series. So you can come down here, and I'm going to put on new single family houses for sale and new single family houses sold. Come back up and click the button, and you can see it plotted those 2 things on the graph. And it's a lot of years, so I'm actually going to narrow that down by moving the scroll bar at the bottom. And I'll bring us right to 2019 to 2024. So you can kind of see a little bit of pre-COVID, then you've got the COVID recession in the gray bar, and then you've got post-COVID over here. So again, as you can see, as you hover over, it tells you each data point as you scroll along. So again, this is just a cool way. You can plot some of the indicators here, or you can focus on that index value. And of course, you can learn more about going to this About tab. So scrolling down, we have the list of indicators. So again, this is what our page looks like currently, but what I showed you previously will be what we are going to move towards very shortly in the next few months. So as you can see, it lists all of the indicators. If you just kind of scroll down, they're all here. And they all have some cool data points. You can also drop down and go to your specific indicator from the top right here as well. So I'm going to go to new residential sales. So that is right here on the left. We have new residential sales for April. It was down 4.7%. And it was released for the on May 23rd. So again, this gives you quick snapshots. If you click on new residential sales, it'll take you to the website, or you can click on the press release right here, or the I want to button. The I want to button is very similar to the action buttons that I showed you earlier. So it's all kind of the same stuff. They're just a little bit more hidden here. So now I'm going to click on this and we will go to the web page. So each indicator has a web page that looks very similar to this. At the top, it tells you the indicator or the survey, and it has a blurb at the top that describes what the data items are, what the survey covers, anything that's related to the indicator. And then you have 3 buttons or quick links to get you to some big traffic areas for the indicators. So you have the latest new residential sales report, or you can go to quarterly sales by price and financing, or the release schedule. Then right below that, we have announcements. So any announcements pertaining to the indicator will be listed here. Very helpful if you're trying to figure out what's going on, or if there was a recent change that you had no idea about, it should be listed here. So real quick, I'm going to click on the report and show you guys the report. So again, each indicator has something similar where it does a quick, a little bit more detailed snapshot of the indicator. And where you can see a few paragraphs about the new home sales, the sales price. And then we also have an image at the top. You can click on that image and it'll make it bigger. So you can kind of see that graph a little bit better too for the houses sold. And then at the bottom, you have additional release materials. So that's usually the PDF or the Excel version, but you can also see the historical time series or any other things that the indicator might have. So I'm going to talk about the left navigation pane a little bit as well. So the About link right here, it is kind of self-explanatory. It tells you more about the survey that you're looking at. And then we have information for respondents. So if you're actually responding to the survey, this is where you would go and you can actually see the forms that we send out to respondents to complete the survey. I'm going to skip over data real quick. I'll come back to that one. And then we have the technical documentation. So if you want to learn more about the methodology or the mathematical equations behind how this was done, that's where you would want to go. And then you have definitions, right? If you're new and you have no idea what you're looking at, definitions is always a great place to start because there's a lot of lingo in these indicators that you definitely want to make yourself familiar with. We'll go over the time series, or Nicole will go over the time series and trend charts. And then we have the last 3, self-explanatory, of the release schedule for the indicator, any FAQs, or if you want to contact us. All right, so now I'll click on the Data tab. So the Data tab brings you to any relevant data that's for the indicator. So as you can see, we've got latest new residential sales data. We've got other data from the survey of construction because new residential sales is actually a part of the survey of construction. And then we've got related surveys to the indicator. So real quick, I'm just gonna go to the other data from the survey of construction, just to give you guys an idea of some other things that are out there. And I'm gonna click on the annual characteristics of new housing. So that seems interesting, right? All right, so then we've got more options to choose from. Again, we've got so much data, so it's really great. So I'm actually just gonna keep it simple. I'm gonna go straight to the annual data for the latest available category. And then here, we have a table of all the characteristics for houses, right? So you can click on single family completed, single family sold, multifamily units, etc. And let's see, let's just click on bathrooms. Let's download that Excel file and see what that will give us. Bear with me while my Excel is opening. So in the Excel, you're able to see the number of bathrooms in new single family houses completed. So that is for total for the year of, let's see, 2023, there was 999 total, and then 41 of them had 1.5 baths or less. So those are the kind of like characteristics you can see from this particular table. And that actually ends my demonstration. So I'm going to stop screen sharing and hand it back over to Nicole.
Thank you, Emma. That was great. I agree. There's so much information. We're just scratching the surface of what you can find. Now I'm going to go over our scenario. So the scenario base that we're looking at today is we're working with Davy, the real estate developer, and she is located in Virginia. And she's going to use Census Bureau indicators and building permits survey as part of her decision-making process on when and where to build her next single-family housing development. So as Emma just went over the indicators, you can imagine how valuable that data is to Davy as she starts analyzing different aspects of the economy to make a decision on her development. Couple of the things she's going to look at out of the gate. Emma just went over the monthly new residential sales. So she's going to look at that to get a handle on, are residential sales up? Are they down? She will be able to look at that, get the median sales price. And then she also will be able to look at the new residential construction reports. So this provides great information for her. When Emma had gone into this, we have similar detail in our new residential construction pages. The links are on here. Definitely invite you to research in these areas. One of the things I did want to mention, which I thought was amazing, data are available on a monthly and annual basis for housing starts going back to 1959. And for new home sales, it goes back to 1963. And for completions, it goes back to 1968. So if you really want to look at long-term trends, it provides a lot of historical information. One of the questions Davy has that she wants to put in her analysis, she wants to know how new single-family house prices are changing. And I had pulled this up. It provides information on, it's from that annual data on the characteristics that Emma had shared. But if you pull this up, Davy can look at, from the United States as a whole, she can look at how the trend has gone for the median sales prices of homes. She can see that since 2019, all the way to 2023, the median home prices have pretty much been rising. There was a small dip in the national level from 22 to 23, But then if you look at it by region, you can see that the Northeast, the prices have been rising. The median sales price and the average sales price, we have the two columns here, have been, consistently rising in the Northeast. If you look at the Midwest, that has pretty much risen. The 22 and 23 year ending in 22, 2023. It's pretty much stayed the same those 2 years. The South, you have prices continue to rise. The West, they were rising, and then you see a slight dip. So this is giving her some idea on, getting a handle on how the prices are changing in the real estate market. Now, the building permit survey. One thing, the purpose of a building permit survey, it's to provide that national, state, and local statistics on new privately owned residential construction. So this is really important information for Davy to look at as she's analyzing, when, where, and how to build her next development. One thing that I wanted to share is that building permits, the data we collect from individual permit offices, most of those are municipalities. Sometimes a permit office may be a county or a township. But one of the things that's important to know is that building permits are public records. So this local area data we can publish without any confidentiality concerns. So it really allows us to get down into the local levels and provide this data on a fairly recent information. If you look at the chart here, you can see that you can get current and historical data available. And as I mentioned previously, our time series and trend charts tool has data on permits going back to 1959, which I personally consider that amazing that you can go back that far. And one of the things you can look at multiple geography levels for this information. So you can pull permits by the state. You can go down to the county. You can even go down to your place. So any town, USA, you can go in and you can look at the building permit activity that has happened over the past years, decades, however you want to look at that. You can pull the data as Emma had shown from tables, charts, graphs. We have data visualizations, which I'm going to review with you. You can pull up announcements, and then those construction press releases are really helpful and will be helpful to Davy as she looks to analyze data. One of the uses I want to share with you some of the uses of the building permit survey. So for instance, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, they can use this information to evaluate their housing programs. So if there's more houses, they may need more assistance in different areas or less houses. Financial institutions use this information, this survey data, to estimate the demand for mortgages. And then private businesses such as Davy, she could use this information for her market planning, for her materials use, and also for her investment analysis, which is what she's doing in this example that we're going to provide. When you look at the building permits visualization tools, these are the three that are available. We have the time series and table tool, and we have a building permit survey state and county map tool, which is a visualization. And then we have the MSA tool, which is Metropolitan Statistical Area. When I do the demonstration, we're going to look at the first two. Main reason is Davy is trying to narrow down the county that she wants to put her development in. So she's not interested in the metropolitan statistical area. She really wants to nail it down to the county level. So that's why we'll be looking at that second visualization in addition to the time series and table tool. When she pulls up the time series tool, she's going to see, she'll be able to pull up Virginia specifically. She'll be able to look at the data on a national basis, but she'll also be able to pull Virginia and look at each county. And this tool, I will demonstrate, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but it actually, the dots allow her to see if building permits are up or if they're down in a certain county. The time series tool also allows you to have graphs. So Davy will be able to graph and compare 4 different counties. So she has 4 counties in mind, and she's going to graph those and put those as part of her analysis in her report for her decision making on her development. This is the opening page of the time series and trend charts. Going back to 1959, we'll be able to get that data. This will be part of the actual demonstration. So I'm going to go over that. I'll show you live, which I think is more fun, the demos. Another question Davy has is how many single family homes have sold? Emma was able to provide some of that information. Davy will also be able to use this time series trend chart to get a visual of how many single family homes have sold. So we will show you that shortly. And then the other question that she has that we want to answer for her in the demonstration is how many single or multi-family homes are under construction? Because it's one thing to know homes are for sale or they've sold, but she also wants to know how many are currently under construction. If she puts in a development, she's going to want to know, you know, what else is out there as far as homes that will be coming onto the market. This shows you from a visual standpoint and from a chart. When we talk about the different regions the data is available in, you can see that how the West is chunked, and then you can see the South. Virginia is actually falling in the South region. So when Davy's going to pull up her information, she's going to be looking at that South region. But you can see how the states all contribute to the different regions for this data. And now I am going to go into the demo. Let me switch over. Okay, here is our landing page, which it brings us right to the building permit survey. And you can see, you can get there through our surveys and programs, but you also can come in through the indicators. And one of the things I'll tell you that sometimes you can get lost on our site. But if you click on our logo, it always brings you back to the main landing page. That's just a little tip that I like to provide. But here is the information on the building permit survey. You can see the available data. We talked about the current and historical data. And scrolling down here, data visualizations. These are the areas that Davy is going to look at to start helping her make her decisions. When you double click on data visualizations, it brings up the 3 that I had shown you previously, the metropolitan statistical area, the state county map, and then the time series tool. So I'm going to first click on the state and county map. And you can see it pulls up automatically. It pulls up defaults to the United States. So you can see at the top of this, it has a year. It's showing you if building permits, if the activity, if they've increased or decreased in certain areas. You can also use this arrow and you can go back. Right now it's showing you 2023. You can scroll back to 2022, to 2021, which to me, this is quite a picture when you look at this. And Emma had shown that kind of following COVID year, there was a lot of building permits, and this graph just really shows it with all of the darker blue circles showing that building permits were up pretty much across the country right after COVID. So I'm going to scroll back over to the most recent data, which would be 2023. You just move your chart over. Now, Davy is looking at the state of Virginia. So you can click on the Virginia state. And basically it does the same thing that the national map does, but it just brings up each county in Virginia. So when you hover over and click on a county or one of these dots, you can see I'm on Fairfax County here. So it tells you right off the bat that the change in building permits, when it was 63.5% increase the year 2023 over 2022. It shows you the number broken out by single family and multifamily. So you can see in Fairfax, there were a large volume of building permits. Many were multifamily, but there were some single family as well. She's also interested in Greene County. You can see 132% increase in building permits in Greene County. And again, it shows you the breakout between those permits that were for single family versus multifamily. And she's also going to look at Orange County. Now, Orange County is interesting. You can see on here that the building permits were up 75.1%. But if you look, it's all single family homes in this county. And there were no multifamily homes that had building permit requests. So this is a way for her to start kind of identifying some of the counties that she's looking at building in. Now I'm going to hit my arrow back. It's the easiest way to get back to those 3 visualizations that were part of the building permit survey. Here we are back at that page. Now we're going to go into the time series and table tool. And I think this is such a cool tool. So I invite you all to go into your hometown and check out your building permits and see how things have changed. I certainly did that right before I started working on this presentation. So here is the landing page. What it does, it shows you, it defaults to the US as a whole. So it has every single state in here. And you can see that it goes back to 1990. So there's a lot of data points on this chart. It's actually, it can be overwhelming because it's every state and it goes back so far. But you can click on any of these and it will bring up what that is. It's supposed to pop it up. It's not. Okay, well, here we are at the default. One of the things that you want to do, the very first thing you want to do, Davy is interested in the state of Virginia. So you don't come up here. You want to go to this box right here. You want to click down and we want to get rid of every state. She's not interested in every state. She just wants to analyze building permits in Virginia. So if you click the all, it will uncheck all. And it's not. And you're supposed to come down and click Virginia. Those little arrows should be disappearing, but they're not. Ah, there they are. Little delay. All right, so now what we're looking at, I took out all of the other states and we just have Virginia. To get rid of this, you can just click in a gray area and it will just take away that drop down. Here are the building permits that were authorized from 1990 all the way to 2023. Oh, and I'm in Vermont. I am sorry. Goodness. Hold on. Bear with me. Getting rid of Vermont, we're putting Virginia back in. And again, to get this list to disappear, you just click on the gray. So here's Virginia. And now we can go to the top. Davy's going to look at the time. She wants to look at total units. That's total housing units. She is interested in the single family units. So if you click on single family, it will adjust. And then here is the year. So this brings us all the way back, as I mentioned, to 1990. Davy isn't interested in going back that far. So you can click the all, which will uncheck that. And she just wants to go back 5 years. So she's going to check on 2023, 2022, 2021, and 2019. So when she does that, there she has information on the building permits from 2019 to 2023. It breaks it out annually. If Davy wants to, she could actually look at that on a monthly basis. Provides a little more volatility up and down, depending on the month that the building permits were issued. I'm going to go back to annual. And now Davy wants to look at the different counties. Remember, she was going to compare 4 different counties in Virginia. So to do that, we're looking at the geographic type and we are going to choose county. Now we could choose place. If she was interested at comparing 2 or 3 cities or towns, she could do that as well with this tool. She could compare several states, but she wants to look at counties in Virginia. And the automatic default, it brings back, it puts all the counties for the state of Virginia in the map, which again, you have a very busy graph here. I am going to go to this county and I don't want all. I'm going to uncheck once again all. And we are going to put in the counties that Davy is interested in. She's interested in Bedford County. So you check Bedford County. She is interested in Fairfax County. And she is interested in comparing Greene County. And the last county is Orange. I could scroll down, but just as another option, you can type in Orange and it brings up Orange County. Just another way to get on your graph. So here is her graph that is actually allowing her to look at single family building permits on an annual basis in these 4 counties. Just another way of gathering data to help her analyze and make her decision on building. Back to the main. And now quickly, I just want to go down to the time series trend charts tool. This tool is going to help answer her question on how many homes are under construction. So it defaults to new residential construction, which is great. That's what we're looking for. Starts at 1959. She doesn't want to go back that far. Again, Davy's going to go back to 2019. You can see there are many different, she can look at many different things. She's looking at housing units under construction. And she wants single family units. And this time she could look for the United States, but she's going to just go to the South region, which is where she's from, get data. And here is her chart that she's able to pull up. And as mentioned, she can have a line chart that she can provide, line graph. She can put a bar chart, click on the bar chart. It shows the same data on a bar chart if she wants that. Or she can get something in kind of a report form, which if she's putting this in her analysis report, it shows it this way. So it makes it a little fancier if she's putting together a report. So I am going to, that's a demo for that. And just to recap, as we're getting low on time here, Davy, all of the indicators in the building permit survey have provided Davy some great information as she's analyzing whether or not to build and when to build and where to build. So the economic indicators really gave her some key measures on the economy. They helped her gauge the economic conditions from a national standpoint, so she can start putting that in her analysis to make her decision. She was able to look at monthly, quarterly, weekly indicator information, so it's current and it's up to date. And then she looked at the building permit survey information to really drive down into the local level, so she'd be able to see what the trends are. Historical, as we mentioned, going back to 1959 if she wanted to go back that far, but she can look at more current as well. So all of these help Davy and other businesses to make decisions and analyze different data points that the Census Bureau has to make those decisions. So that is the end of our webinar, and we thank you for joining us, but we do want to open it up for questions. We have a few moments and we have some experts on the line that can answer any questions. So I will open it up for questions.
Bill or Carol, were there any questions that you thought would be good to bring to the whole group, or will we just answer those after the presentation in writing?
I think we've got most of them responded to in the Q&A form. Seasonal adjustment was a question that came up in our Q&A platform here. If you want to speak just a little bit about what does seasonally adjusted mean? Perhaps Bill could answer it for the group.
Sure. Yeah, so the question was, what does seasonal adjustment mean? And I know this is kind of an official definition here from the webpage, but I did like the page. So seasonal adjustment is the estimation of the seasonal component and, when applicable, the trading day and moving holiday effects, followed by the removal from the time series. The goal is usually to produce series whose movements are easier to analyze over consecutive time intervals and to compare the movements to other series in order to direct code movements. And I gave a link of where some more information on seasonal adjustment can be found.
Great, thank you. Carol, Bill, any other questions you want to bring to the group?
I think, like I said, most of them were answered here. The World Wide Web is just that, www, and it is open to whoever has access to the internet, and everything you've seen on this presentation is available free of additional charge to whoever logs into the www.census.gov site. So we will have this presentation available on our Census Academy website, census.gov/academy within 30 business days. And you are free to go back there and check it out for anything you might have missed or any kind of how-tos. We're also open for any kind of follow-up questions at our census.askdata@census.gov, or you can call us at 844-275-3282. That's 844-ASK-DATA. Bill, would you have anything else to add?
I do see a couple more detailed questions here that came in late about residential construction. So one of them is this data, is there similar data available for commercial construction? Unfortunately, that answer is no. We only cover residential construction at this level of detail. I know it would be nice to have. I think a long time ago, Census did have some, but currently there's not. Another question was, do you provide housing construction deficiencies, demand minus supply for states, cities, and counties? I don't think we have any way really to measure the demand of that. You know, we're generally asking the building permit offices or the builders themselves just, you know, a number for how many units they approved, how many units they sold. We're not really able to measure the demand side of that. So I think those were the two specific questions on housing.
Great.
Let's see.
Thank you so much. And we're at that 3:01. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Bill, thank you. And Carol, thank you. And a huge thank you to Emma and Nicole. This was a fantastic presentation. I know I learned quite a bit, and I know everyone else did as well, given the excellent questions that were asked. Just as a reminder, as Carol said, everything will be available on our Census Academy website within 30 days, which includes the Q&A. So any questions that weren't answered, we will be taking the time to make sure we get those answered for you and posting those with the materials. I do just also want to ask if you could make sure you take a moment to fill out the evaluation that will appear when you exit the webinar. We really are interested in hearing from you on how we're doing. And that brings us to a close. So we thank you again for joining us today and hope you have a great afternoon.
This concludes today's webinar. Thank you for your participation. You may disconnect at this time.